Hey everyone, I'm Matt Dolan with Dolan Divorce Lawyers in Connecticut, and today what I'm going to talk about is how to find the right divorce lawyer for your particular case. So if you're watching this video, you probably are questioning where to even begin, and I would suggest that you start in one of two places. Either asking people you know or searching online for Google reviews. So you may or may not feel comfortable asking people you know, find out if they had a divorce lawyer, who they used, if they were comfortable working with them, or, if they haven't, maybe they know somebody who has, and get that name from someone you know. Obviously, direct referrals from people and hearing firsthand what people's experience was is generally pretty reliable. But I would definitely cross-check that against Google reviews. Because obviously, if one person had a good experience with an attorney, that's not necessarily indicative of everybody having a good experience with that attorney. So I would suggest double checking that against Google. Google reviews I find to be particularly the most valid because you have to be an actual person to leave a Google review. They have much more stringent guidelines and can weed out fraudulent reviews. So reviews on Google are generally quite helpful. Now, some attorneys are, very good attorneys and they don't necessarily pay attention to gathering Google reviews. So the fact that they don't have many Google reviews at all is not, necessarily indicative of them being a bad attorney for your case. But if you go on and you see, a lot of negative reviews, that's obviously a red flag that they may not be the best person for you. So I would look at the reviews, go in and read them, and you can generally get a good sense of a firm or a person by reading those online reviews. So once you've got, some firms that you can reach out and talk to, I would call them and schedule an initial call with, an attorney or their staff. Every firm is going to have a different system for onboarding new clients and having consultations with clients, but you obviously want to get a understanding of their level of experience. So I would go in and talk about the specifics of your case. Maybe you have a business or other complex financial assets, or you might have complicated custody issues, or maybe you have a very straightforward case that shouldn't be particularly complicated or contentious. But you want to describe the specifics of your case as you understand them to be and get a feel for whether they have experience in handling those types of cases. Obviously, you want somebody who is experienced, who has handled cases like yours. You should also get an understanding of what sort of family law they practice. So some attorneys, handle only litigation. So that is, going to court and, each party is represented by an individual attorney, and you go to court and the lawyers basically figure it out. So there's litigation or there's mediation, and that's where there's a neutral party helping to, get two parties to reach an agreement. Or there's something different called collaborative divorce, which I'm not going to get into the specifics. We have a separate video that explains collaborative divorce, but you want to get an understanding of the type of law they practice and whether or not that is something that you are looking for. You want to get an understanding for their familiarity with your particular court. So, in Connecticut, there's different courthouses throughout the state. You are going to want somebody who is familiar with your particular court. Every court operates in a different way. You want to make sure that the person you're working with is familiar with the way your court operates and has familiarity with the judges in that courthouse, because you want to know the judges that you're appearing in front of, because ultimately those judges are making a decision and you're generally trying to reach an agreement based on what judges are likely to do. So you want to make sure that your lawyer is familiar with the court where your case will be filed. You also want to make sure you're comfortable with their strategy. So there's all sorts of different types of lawyers. There's kind of like the more pit bull approach of the super aggressive lawyer who, win at all costs. And some people want that, but some people don't. They want a more collaborative approach. Obviously there's downsides to that pit bull approach. There can be lasting impact on a family. Obviously, you may have to co-parent a child, or You know, you don't want to run up the finances too much. If you don't want to run up the bill with your attorney if finances are limited. So there can be downsides to that more aggressive approach where you want somebody who works a little bit more collaboratively and, you know, isn't quite so aggressive and contentious. But what I would advise you to do is make sure that your lawyer is willing to go to trial if necessary, if you're going the litigation route, because, you know, ultimately you can be as collaborative as you want and be as non-contentious as you can be, but you may or may not reach an agreement. And ultimately, if you're not able to reach an agreement in your case, you want to have a lawyer who's comfortable going to trial and going to court to have a judge make a decision. And not all lawyers love going to trial. So you want to make sure that your lawyer is comfortable with that process. Another thing to kind of screen for in the beginning is communication style. Some lawyers, you know, they're not very responsive. They may say, you know, I'll talk to you, you know, right before your court appearance, but otherwise, I have a lot of cases and I may, you know, I'm not necessarily going to be that available. And, you know, that may be something you're comfortable with, something you're not comfortable with. So getting an understanding of that communication style, whether they generally communicate by email, phone, Zoom, in person, etc. You want to make sure you're on the same page there. You know, also get an understanding of, you know, the responsiveness expectations. You know, if you send an email, you may want a response within 24 hours, or maybe you don't care if you get a response, you know, within a week or so. You know, just getting an understanding of that communication style is important because, you know, this is obviously a very stressful time, and you want to make sure that if you're trying to communicate with your lawyer, that they are communicating back to you in a way that you are comfortable with. There's, of course, cost considerations. So most lawyers are going to operate, you know, on an hourly basis. So, you know, the time that they put into your case, they bill hourly, and they'll take an upfront retainer. So a retainer is basically a deposit that you pay to your attorney, and as your attorney does work on your case, you know, the hourly rate comes out of the retainer, and depending on how much work they ultimately do on your case, you get some of the money back or you get billed in addition to the retainer. So you, of course, need to make sure that you can afford the fees of your attorney, and, you know, they're not going to be able to tell you ultimately like how much your divorce is going to cost. It's very unpredictable. You know, a case can be settled very quickly or it can go on for a long time. It's hard to know how long it's going to go on in the beginning. But just getting an understanding of the range of cost that your attorney charges. And at the end of the day, it's really just following your gut. So just, you know, talking to several different attorneys, making sure that you're comfortable with the person that you're working with or the firm that you're working with, their style of communication, and just their overall approach. I would really just advise you to follow your gut and partner yourself up with the person that feels right for your situation. So if you have any other questions about this process and how to pick out an attorney, you know, feel free to contact our office and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. And as usual, if you are looking for representation in a divorce or family law case, we would invite you to contact our office as well.